16 months ago, she was ranked number 140 in the world, and almost nobody outside her own country knew her name. Today, she is the highest-ranked woman in the history of Philippine tennis. And what she did to get there involves beating a world number 2, a defending Wimbledon champion, and a country's expectations, all before turning 22. If you think you already know this story, I promise you, by the end of this video, you will understand why this is only the beginning of something much bigger. Stay with me, because the final chapter of this story has not been written yet, and I'm going to tell you exactly what happens next. Before we go any further, I need you to do one thing. If this is the first time you are hearing this name, do not scroll away, because I promise you, this channel is going to be the place that tells you her story before the rest of the world catches up. Hit subscribe right now, because what I am about to walk you through is not just a highlight reel. It is proof of something historic happening in real time, and I do not want you to miss a single chapter of it. This is the story of Alexandra Eala, and trust me, you are going to want to be here for what comes next. On the 13th of July 2026, the WTA rankings updated quietly. No trophy ceremony, no packed stadium, no dramatic match point, just a number next to a name. 28. But that quiet little number carried more historic weight than almost anyone realized in the moment, because Alexandra Eala had just become the first Filipina in history to enter the WTA singles top 30. Not top 50, not top 100, top 30. No woman representing the Philippines had ever reached that high before, not once, in the entire history of the sport. And here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. 16 months earlier, this same woman walked into the Miami Open ranked number 140, still searching for a breakthrough, with most casual tennis fans having never even heard her name. So, how does a player go from 140 to 28 in 16 months? That is exactly what I'm going to walk you through. And I promise you, the middle of this story is where it gets really interesting. So stick with me. She was born on the 23rd of May, 2005 in Quezon City, Philippines, a country that has produced legendary champions in boxing, basketball, and weightlifting, but never in tennis. There was no established pipeline for her to follow, no long list of national champions, proving the path could be walked. She had to build that path herself. Her grandfather was one of the first people who put a racket in her hand, and almost immediately, something was different about the way she played. She was not just hitting the ball harder than the other kids. She understood, even as a child, exactly where the next shot needed to go. At 12 years old, she won Les Petites in France, one of the most respected junior tournaments on the planet, a tournament that has produced future professional stars for decades. That would open a door that would change her entire life. At just 13 years old, she left Manila and moved to Mallorca to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy. Take a moment to actually picture that. A 13-year-old girl, thousands of miles from home, balancing school, training, and international travel, all while trying to prove she belonged among some of the best young players in the world. In 2022, at the U.S. Open, she won the girls' singles championship, becoming the first player from the Philippines to ever win a junior Grand Slam singles title. It was historic. But here is something almost nobody talks about, and it is the part of this story that matters most. Winning a junior Grand Slam does not automatically make you a professional star. Some players rise instantly. Most spend years grinding through lower-level tournaments, empty stadiums, brutal travel schedules, and opponents who have absolutely nothing to lose against a rising junior champion. Eala entered that stage of her career already carrying attention, already carrying expectation, already carrying the hopes of an entire nation that had waited decades for a player exactly like her. And for a while, progress was slow. By the end of 2024, she had only climbed into the top 150, not the dramatic breakthrough everyone had predicted after her junior success. Potential can open a door, but only results can keep it open. And at that point in her career, the results were not coming fast enough for anyone watching from the outside. And then came March 2025. This is where everything changes. So pay close attention, because what happens next is a turning point of the entire story. She arrived at the Miami Open with a wild card and a ranking of 140, 19 years old, surrounded by champions, power hitters, and players with years more experience. Nobody expected her to become the story of the tournament. She was just supposed to be happy to be there. Instead, she started winning, round after round. And then she ran into Madison Keys, a top 5 player and reigning Grand Slam champion. On paper, it should not have been close. Eala did not try to overpower her. She used placement, timing, and movement, absorbing the pace and forcing Keys into uncomfortable positions. She won 6-4, 6-2, straight sets, over one of the best players alive. But that was not even the biggest moment of that tournament. In the quarterfinals, she faced Iga Swiatek, world number 2 at the time, a multiple Grand Slam champion, one of the most dominant players of her entire generation. Eala took the first set 6-2. Swiatek fought back and pushed her into a real battle in the second set. And this is exactly the moment that separated a lucky run from a real champion, because young players often play free and loose while they are ahead, but the true test comes when the established star starts applying pressure. Eala did not fold. She stayed aggressive. She trusted every decision. She closed out the second set 7-5, ranked 140 in the world. She had just beaten the number 2 player on the planet in straight sets. For Filipino tennis, nothing like that had ever happened before. She went on to push Jessica Pegula to 3 sets in the semifinals before finally losing. She left Miami without a trophy, but she left with something far more valuable: proof. Her ranking jumped from 140 to 75. She became the first Filipina ever to crack the WTA Top 100. And that is exactly when the hardest part of her journey actually began, because now everybody was watching, everybody was studying her footage, and every single tournament from that point forward carried more pressure than the one before it. Stay with me, because what happens over the next year is where this story becomes something almost nobody could have predicted. 3 months later, she reached her first WTA Tour final in Eastbourne on grass, a surface that punishes hesitation. She lost that final to Maya Joint, a painful defeat, but it proved Miami was not a one-week accident. Then in September, she won her first professional title at the WTA 125 level in Guadalajara. Titles did not always get the same attention as famous upsets, but they matter more because they require you to survive an entire week and close out the final match while everyone expects you to win. She finished 2025 ranked number 50 in the world. Not a distant prospect anymore. An established top 50 player with her sights on something bigger. Then came 2026, and the pressure changed shape entirely, because she returned home to Manila for the Philippine Women's Open, and for the first time, an entire nation could watch her compete on home soil. Children showed up with tennis balls and handmade signs. National media treated every match like a historic sporting event. She was no longer just competing for ranking points. She was now carrying the expectations of every child in her country who suddenly believed, for the first time in their lives, that this was actually possible. In June, she won a second WTA 125 title in Birmingham, again on grass. And that detail matters more than you think, because Wimbledon was coming, and grass had quietly become her most dangerous surface. In Berlin, right before Wimbledon, she defeated Elena Rybakina, one of the most powerful hitters on tour, and followed that up by beating Alina Svitolina, another elite top 10 opponent. Miami was not a fluke. Eastbourne was not a fluke. Guadalajara was not a fluke. Birmingham was not a fluke. Berlin was not a fluke. She was building an undeniable body of evidence. And then Wimbledon arrived, and this is where the story reaches its peak. So do not go anywhere. She entered as a 29th seed, the first player in history to represent the Philippines as a seeded player in a Grand Slam singles draw. In the third round, she faced Iga Swiatek again, except this time it was center court, the defending champion, and none of the surprise she had in Miami. The first set became a war that went all the way to a tiebreak, 9 points each, one mistake away from disaster for either player. Eala won the final 2 points and took the tiebreak 11-9. Then, instead of relaxing, she got more aggressive in the second set, closing it out 6-2. For the second time in 16 months, she had beaten Swiatek in straight sets, and this time she had done it on the biggest court in tennis, becoming the first Filipina in the Open era to reach the 4th round of a Grand Slam. Fans back home watched from their living rooms, from restaurants, from workplaces, Because this was not just a tennis match anymore. This was a nation watching someone finally prove what they had believed for years. In the fourth round, she lost a tight 3-set battle to Jasmine Paolini, 6-4 for 6, 3-6. The run ended without a trophy. But here's the part one need you to really understand, because this is the difference between a viral moment and a real career. One great win creates attention. Multiple elite wins under completely different kinds of pressure create credibility. And Eala had just proven she is both. So when the rankings updated on July the 13th and she reached number 28, that number was not really about